All right, let's keep this going. The next survey or the next type of research that you can do when you're studying deviance is content analysis. Um, you might ask yourself, well, what's content analysis? Well, it's just reviewing records of communications by systematically searching, recording, and analyzing themes and trends that you find in these records that you're reviewing. One great benefit of this type of research is that sources of communication are virtually unlimited. Transcribed interviews or open-ended response surveys, historical documents, legal codes, newspapers, advertisements from many sources, song lyrics, movies, TV, books and magazines, and websites and chat rooms. The list is limitless, as long as you can get a transcribed look at the conversations or the original text of just about anything, and you can do content analysis. Of course, you're using secondary resources, but that's just one of the things that you accept when you're doing content analysis. There are some keys to being successful using this method. First off, have a solid research question. Know what you're looking for when you're going into the data, or you can tend to get lost in the content. Have a reasonably good understanding of the population of the materials or sources that you're going to be using. Know how to search them, know how they're set up, overall formats, and sourcing that they use, and things like that that might be important while you're using content analysis. Ultimately, you need a strategy for sampling records of communication. What is that going to be? You need to have that going in because you want to, at times, use random selection in order to be able to make assessments about the content that you're doing content analysis on in reference to the larger population that you're pulling a subset of this content out of. And of course, be systematic in your approach to extraction and coding. I can't emphasize the importance of this last step because how you extract the data from the content that you're looking at and then how you code that are going to be very important when you're doing your analysis. So I recommend that you do your due diligence here. Take the time, set the study up right, create a coding system that you understand, and be systematic in its use over the course of the research. Secondary data sourcing is also another thing that you can use. What we're doing here is we're going to existing survey data that's already been collected, it's already been analyzed, and it's ready for use. Universal Crime Report, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration survey data, the census itself are valuable resources if you're wanting to do secondary data analysis, bringing statistics to bear on survey types of research that then you can make causal claims about those your findings when you're doing your reporting. When you're using these types of resources, you really want to pick the right resource. If you're studying mental health issues, you might want to deal with SAMHSA's data versus going to the General Social Survey. Another huge topic when we're researching deviance is ethics in research. Research ethics have not always been set in place, and we have learned much from studies that lacked ethical treatment of participants. Research now requires informed consent, moral integrity, and institutional review boards have been established to assist universities and research institutions in protecting human subjects during the research process. A couple of the studies that really raised big questions in reference to ethics are the Milgram study on obedience and the Zimbardo Stanford prison study. Now, even though these studies probably taught us a lot about human behavior, the reason that they're unethical is because of those unintended consequences that the researchers did not take in consideration when they decided to run human subjects through their studies. Take, for example, the Milgram study. The fact that in excess of 60% of the people that participated in the Milgram study shocked the learner all the way up the shock scale. So about 60% of those that were part of the Milgram study shocked all the way up that ladder, which meant that those people probably shocked someone, at least delivered enough electrical current to kill somebody. And when you're going in to take a study, or when you're going in to participate in a study on learning behavior, and what you learn is that you have the potential to kill somebody, and in your mind you just did, even though the person is alive at the end of the experiment, it doesn't change the fact that you pressed that button. And you learn something about yourself that the researchers that were doing the research should have protected you from. The unintended consequences of both the Milgram study and the Zimbardo prison study did exactly that. They exposed their participants to things that harmed them, even if it wasn't a physical blow, it was a mental blow. And as a result of that, we've seen the universities create institutional review boards to protect the participants themselves, to protect the researchers, and ultimately to protect the university. That leads us to what ethical research is today. First, participants must be voluntary. They must sign informed consent. Confidentiality and anonymity are essential, and a third-party institutional review board is going to oversee the research itself. Things have changed, folks, and things have changed for the better. This might be the universities protecting their backsides from lawsuits from people that feel as if they went through unethical studies, but it also does provide protections for those participating in the research and those researchers that are following the rules as well. So one of the issues talked about in the chapter was deviance in reference to gangs, and they make reference to Sudhir Venkatesh in his research, where he goes out into the projects in Chicago and ends up creating a relationship with some gangs, and over many years he becomes embedded with the gangs, and he becomes a conduit for a lot of research and a lot of understandings of how gangs work. And I've uploaded a TED Talk. It's a Stephen Levitt TED Talk. He's the hard scientist, I guess, if you will. He's the one doing the quantitative data analysis, whereas Sudhir is doing the qualitative data collection and data research. So they're working hand in hand, and you can see more about what Sudhir found out and how you combine a mixed methods approach by watching that TED Talk. And they also talked about Diane Bond's research on the Challenger explosion and how she used historical ethnography to study records prior to the launch to discover what was going on that led up to that tragedy itself. We also like to think about how these ideas work in action. Research on deviance is an integral part of program evaluation. It's a great way to use research to measure the success of programs and policies. It's really why a lot of the quantitative data analysis methods were created as the federal government became more in charge of social service programs. They wanted to be able to evaluate the impacts of those programs, and they created research tools that would be able to do that. These provide the ability for evidence-based decision making. So how do you know you're meeting your goals? Well, you establish what your goals are, then you collect data and you analyze the data to see if you've made it. They also provide the ability to complete a cost-benefit analysis of programs and policies, which is important if you're getting federal dollars. The federal government wants to know where that research money is going, and is that research money actually being impactful. And then, of course, it provides the ability for funding agencies to gain evidence of effectiveness of programs, as we mentioned before. So that's essentially deviance in research methods. We'll keep things going here, but yeah, keep up the good work, folks. You're doing great.